it's called a spectrum for a reason. And one child's need is another child's kryptonite. And so really our goal, I think, on the podcast is just to expose parents to ideas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Polaris Connection, your podcast that connects parents of autistic children with industry experts and proven results. I am your host, Brad Broyles, and I'm here with my sensory home hacker, Nathan Palmer.
You know, I don't consider myself a hack, but I'm happy to talk about the home.
Well, today, as you know, we're going to be talking about home hacks for autistic parents. And before we go and talk about our topic, I think let's make a few announcements that our parents are really excited to hear. What do we have going on this July in 2026?
This July? There's so much. I mean, from a Polaris perspective, we're opening up 2 new campuses.
That's incredible.
Which is, you know what? It's wasn't even on my radar 2 years ago. I thought we'd start with one school and we'd just have one school, and it was, you know, a place for my boy to go to school. And now we're opening. We're growing from 10,000 square feet currently to 60,000 square feet by July. I mean, it's just unreal. It's just unreal.
Well, and I know I've been seeing you, and I know you and I have been working really hard to get these campuses open. We kind of indirectly, in a way, I guess an accident, kind of got into autism construction in a way, or design. Real fast, so I know some of our audience are curious about it. What are some different architectural designs that we are introducing at Polaris Academy that you don't see anywhere else?
You know what? Let me share 2 that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, parents could even use at home. Right, when we're talking about regulation. Yes. So one of the biggest, and it may sound simple, is just adaptive lighting.
Now, what does that mean, adaptive lighting?
Lighting that can be changed, the tone of color, as well as the brightness. Okay, so you'll go to the store and sometimes you'll see different colored light bulbs, like a daylight light bulb or a bright white or a warm, you know, all these different things. And the Kelvin-range is kind of like what you would call the intensity of the light, whether it's more blue or more yellow. Okay. So the color of light is important for kids on the spectrum. Too blue, and it's like almost like a vibration, like it's buzzing to their eyes, if you can even imagine that sensation.
Okay.
Too warm, and it's almost like too lethargic. It shuts you down. So if you want a child to be responsive, if you want them to be focused, you're looking for a Kelvin range more around the 3,000, or kind of like what I'd say the bright white. It's not a whole lot of yellow, but not too much blue. Okay, so if I had like a white light spectrum, we're not in the exact middle, we're to like just the right of middle, more towards blue than yellow.
So if I have dimmers in my house, if I put dimmers in, how do I know which one to put in and how to gauge that so I get that right
Great
number?
Question. We're not even on dimmer. We're just talking about the color of the bulb.
Okay. The
light that it produces, right? So that's a conscious choice. So when we went and looked at design principles for focused attention and good energy, that light spectrum, that low 3,000 range, was kind of ideal for focus without being overstimulating, without being obtrusive to the eyes, and without being too like melancholy where it's shutting you down.
Is there like a light bulb that you would recommend that you can go on Amazon and something that we would just kind of share with our audience? Like, hey, if you use these light bulbs, these are ones that we would kind of suggest that you can have in your house?
So great question. No one specific brand, but again, they all have like a light spectrum range.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the Kelvin range, if that's what you use, look for like the low 3,000, like the 3,000 to 3,500. If they don't give that, you're looking more the description. They typically will have like a chart on the back of where they tend to be more yellow or more blue, and you want to be just to the right of center, meaning you're on the blue side of center, not the yellow side of center.
So now think about your house. So if I put these lights, these Kelvin lights within that range, would I want to put that in my child's bedroom? Would I want to have that in the kitchen? Would I want to have that throughout the entire home, or?
Now that's where you get to be intentional with lighting. So if you want an area where you want more focused energy, that's not overstimulating.
Okay, so that can be like in the playroom.
Yes. So in general, I would say avoid the daylight bulbs.
Okay.
Some people love them. They're good in modern design, but that blue is like, it can be piercing for a child that has oversensory stimulation. It's just like, it's like laser beams into their eyes. So I would not go pure daylight. Sacrifice that interest if you like it for your child. It's just too much for them. It blends too much into the fluorescent range, which is just too triggering. So I would consider the use of the room. If it's just their bedroom and there's not a lot of learning activities there and bedtime is just shutdown time, go with the warmer light, right? That's what those are designed for. But if you're wanting attentive response...
Would you still want to put a dimmer if you could?
Always. We haven't talked about dimmers yet. We're just on tone, right? But do an exercise, right? So a lot of these places, lighting stores, will let you play with colors. And if you want to sample it, get a few different styles. Some of them you can change on the bulb itself. So you can buy some fixtures that you can adjust the color. So you can change it situationally. They cost a little bit more. But just try some. Like put different colors in different rooms. And listen, children are different. Explore and ask them, what color do they like best?
I was almost going to ask that. Like maybe take it from their point of view, have them kind of decide what kind of bulb they would want in different kind of learning environments throughout their house.
Yeah, and that's so cool. At our school, and most people would never know this, but all of our lights have color selectors, and we modulate them in different environments with different colors intentionally. You'd walk through and never know it. It would just feel right, but that was all by design. So just take an intentional approach to lighting, be conscious of the color, and play with those impacts on your child. It's amazing how much that environmental adjustment can affect regulation, can affect awareness, can affect focus, and that's something that's very simple and cost-effective.
Well, and I always kept going back to the dimmers, like having the dimmer be the light of like, okay, I'll just lower the light and then or the dimmer or whatever. Yeah. But you're talking more. You're talking about the light fixture itself.
Yeah, the color first. Dimmers,
yes.
Let's talk about too, because that's the second function of lighting that matters. How much light you're putting out. So we do a fun thing on our tours. We'll walk parents into our classroom, and there are lighting specs that public school districts have for just lighting awareness. They have standard fixtures they use, whether they're LED or whether they're fluorescent. They tend to be these bluish, high fluorescent band lights because they want to have focused illumination, but they're not thinking about the sensory world.
No.
So when I turn our lights on to full in a classroom, all the parents and the children, I can see them like squint and retract. Like it's just like this wave that hits you that you just go, no, and you close. And I go, okay, well, no wonder children in a gen ed setting that have sensory concerns shut down. The environment just triggers it. Okay, so dimming the light and adjusting it gives us a range that it's not overstimulating, but it has a second effect. And you can do this at home. Dimmable switches are fortunately now very affordable. It can be a DIY, do it yourself if you Google it. Electricians can also do it, but they're meant to be user-friendly. When you have a dimmer on a light bulb, you can change the tone of a room in a heartbeat. So color aside, stand in a room and put it on full 100%. Okay? And just take that in. And start at first at like the 2/3 level, and then pump it up full and just watch how your body retracts and constricts. And that's happening all the time at home when people are on a full light switch, whether it's on or off. Now adjust it down to 75, and you'll just feel your body settle a little bit. And so you can pick the range that works for your child. Some kids thrive at like the 50% level.
Right.
Some like the 80. Right? But with the dimmable switch, you can now make that change. And the coolest test is, let's say you get a little hyper, just stand in the room and take it now going down to 25%. And my voice just went down because that's the feel you get. The room settles, like the environment settles, and your body, your nervous system settles. And so it gives you a environmental way to approach regulation with your kid. It's non-behavioral. There's no strategy. You just make it comfortable, and the body responds.
See, and I love that. We've been in school. I know a few times at Polaris Academy, we're there, and kids from time to time will come up and they'll just lower the light themselves, kind of like a self-regulate, which I thought that was really, really neat. They can feel that, hey, I need to lower the light just a little bit, and they get more calm that they do it themselves. I think that's pretty cool.
It's awesome. My contractor asked, Nathan, why are you doing all this lighting change? Because these spaces in the public schools that we're going into, they had plenty of illumination. They were already working with light fixtures. And Brad, I want to say we spent something like $300,000 just on lighting upgrades. And it's because that independent control, that sensory regulation, that modulation teacher by teacher, room by room, that color intentionality, getting the right band of light, that is why when you walk into one of our schools, parents comment all the time, this just feels different. Well, that's a big part of that environmental intention in what we do. And it's an easy, that number sounds scary to folks at home. It's expensive for us because I'm talking about 25,000 square feet with commercial fixtures. Home lights, Home Depot, This is a really easy change, and the net effect for a couple $100 of lighting is huge.
Yeah, that is big. And I like how you can almost control different environments based on what your kids needs. And I like the idea of like, hey child, why don't you decide what kind of light works best and just test it. I like that whole testing, that play. We talked a lot about play and have them feel comfortable in their own environment. Yeah. What are some other architectural, I mean, you can see why we spent so much money in lighting fixtures at Polaris Academy. You said you had 2.
I do. So let me get to the second. I wanted to make one more comment. A lot of homes aren't built with a lot of lighting options. Like there's some houses where the only light in the room is the fan. And so you're limited on how the light goes out. If you need another approach, buying a lamp, right, is another way to just add lighting dimensions, and you can still have all those same color and dimmable options to it. So if you don't have the built-in fixtures, don't think, well, I'm just out of the game. You can still do that with purchase fixtures like floor lamps or table lamps and get the same effect.
And folks, what we'll do is on our podcast, we'll throw out some recommendations that we've used before, that Nathan's used before in his house and some other families use in their house, so that you can kind of experiment yourself and just kind of test out and see what's going to be best for you. We would love for you to comment back and see, hey, we used this and this worked or this didn't work. And that'd be a neat feature for our communities, because I know a lot of parents have questions on that.
Sure.
So,
all right. So the second thing, right? So we talked about that. That's a visual input, a sensory control for visual stimulus. The other one's auditory. So auditory means your ears, what you hear, right? Sound. That's another big area we see in the autism community. Some kids love sound. They like to hear loud sounds. Others try to dampen it out. In either case, sound is just vibration, right? When you think about it, all it is vibration waves through the air. And so regulating that becomes a conscious decision of, how do I control the amount of vibration and the acoustics in my home? 2 ways to do that. Polaris Academy, we had an accidental invention.
I love this story.
we call it the sensory nook. What it was, when we were redesigning our space, our as-built plans, when you work with an existing building, you try to take measurements, but the thickness of the walls can throw it off, and
just like a few feet.
Exactly, especially when you're measuring with walls in place, which is what we did before we ripped it out. And there was this one spot where the bottom line, the wall was off like 2 feet, and so it created this little alcove. And the framer asked, "Hey, do you want to leave this? Do you want me to make it a closet? Do you want me to frame it across and just bury it?" And I remember standing in that little nook, and I had sat down once in this little, I don't want to even call it a sensory chair, but it was like this fabric chair that, instead of just being open, the sides of the chair came up and then continued across in a ceiling, all with fabric. And I remember when I sat down in it, I felt like I was in like my own room, but I was still right out in the public. And I started thinking, well, it was the fabric. It was absorbing the sound, and it quieted my experience. If you've ever been to like a fair or some of these big areas that have like these sensory pods, right? So they're like a sound room. They're great in theory, but nobody wants to go in a wall of glass to be looked at as, oh, look at the weird kid inside the big phone booth.
Shutting the door.
Yes.
It just, when you were explaining it to me before, when you were going through this, I have a good friend that worked at Zillow, and Zillow, they have those sound rooms that you can go in there and you're supposed to yell at the top of your lungs. And I was like, really? People go into this little booth just to yell their frustration at work? I'm like, wow, that's...
Yeah. Now listen, if as a way to go get something out and yell, great. But to escape the noise,
yes.
The problem is all eyes are on you, because you're like, oh, look, like somebody's in the pod.
Yeah, you're in the fishbowl.
Exactly. So it's almost more anxiety inducing than it is sensory regulating. And I'm sitting in that chair going, this is a fantastic way to get a similar effect, but no one thinks I'm odd by sitting in a chair.
No, you're just sitting in the hallway.
So this nook, we theorized, if we line this with an acoustic material, and we went with like an acoustic felt, maybe it would have the same sound dampening effect. So it was a gamble, and it has paid off huge. They're one of my favorite features. We put them right in the public hallway, so the children are not like displaced in the sense that we're sending them to the timeout corner. It doesn't ever feel like a punishment. It's built right into the design architecture, and so when they sit down, the sound just dampens, but they don't feel like they're displaced or disconnected. The vibrations in that are actually lower because, again, sound is vibration. The body responds to vibration. So not only acoustically is it dampened, but your body is receiving less overall stimulation. So the body actually physically settles too. It's not just an ear response, it's a whole body sensation. And the longer you're there, the more you settle into it. So That's a very simple thing you can recreate at home.
So how would you because we buy special felt, like, and they're custom made, and they have different design features that we like to add.
Yeah, look,
and just to kind of on that point real quick before we get to the question, quick little story. We had a parent at Starlight, and we were going to meet in the conference room to go over just different things, whatever. But we have one of those sensory coves there at Starlight, and the parent didn't want to go in the conference room because they felt more comfortable talking in the sensory cove because the sound, the vibrations was less, and it's the mood is less, and it's just more comfortable.
Yeah. So a couple ways you can recreate that. If you have a natural alcove in your house, and a lot of homes do, you just need a back wall and two sides that come out, right? So you just need the proofing on three sides of you. You don't need a full room. There are a number of ways to accomplish it. If you want, Amazon has some very affordable felt tiles. We did more of like a designer grade because this is a commercial space. We wanted a certain look. If you're not worried about the aesthetics, those panels are available on Amazon. They come in like 12 by 12 or 18 inch by 18 inch, and you just stick them on the wall. They come with adhesive tabs, and it's a simple do-it-yourself product.
Well, you can even be, even more simpler and just put like a blanket.
I was going to say that's the go-to. If you can't even get that, a curtain rod with a blanket, or even just a coat rack that you put on the sides. Anything that creates sound on three sides that is with a dampening material will get you that net effect. What's nice about that, Brad, is for years we were marketed this idea of like creating these sensory spaces. And, listen, commercialization, I get. Everybody wants you to buy their products. And so sensory accommodation turned into sensory rooms. That if you Google that on the website, any platform, you're going to see these rooms with like neon, or not neon, but like soft LEDs or color changing or bean bags and swings. And they're almost like a playroom, but for quiet kids. Does that make sense? But they're a playroom style. They're meant to be like this, almost like this enticing space.
Correct.
And the problem with that theory is when we're using it to regulate our children, that means they're coming from a state of dysregulation, and kids are smart. They'll pair when they get to go to that sensory, quote unquote, play space. And as soon as they go, oh, when I act this way, I get to go to that space.
So let me misbehave over here so I can go play in this space.
Yeah, and I don't even want to call it misbehaving. It's just learned behavior. Think of like the mouse with the cheese, right? They will do what they're programmed to do to get their reward. And if you make the sensory accommodation a reward, they will figure out the stimulus that gets them the reward, and it will be a reinforcer, meaning I'm motivated to do more of this thing you're trying to fix because I want to get to that place.
Correct. It's like I like to compare it to, it's like, okay, well, hey, if you don't do what you're going to do, or you learn this new behavior that's probably not the best, well then, hey, I'm going to throw you into a game room where you can play Madden football.
Exactly.
I'm like, okay,
exactly. So,
of course I'm going to do this.
So it's funny. I meet parents all the time. Like, we get students, and they all come to us as master escape artists. They all know how to get out of their non-preferred things.
Yeah, they're very good at it.
Yeah, and the Nooksters, they change that because the accommodation is not a reward. It's just that. It's an accommodation. It gives them a spot to reset. So creating those little acoustic zones.
And I like that it gives them a spot that they can reset, and they don't feel like they're in a fishbowl. Yeah. They don't feel like this, okay, now you're another odd thing here in this special needs school. Like, no, you're just there to reset. I like that it's in the hallway. I like that it's kind of open a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a place that they can do their homework too.
Exactly. And it's something that's always available to them that they don't need permission to use. Like the sensory room, they can't just go in and out whenever because it's a tool, right? But this space, use it as you need. And so what was neat, our students, a lot of them have learned just to self-place and self-remove. They don't need any guidance. They know it's there. They know how to use it. And so it's teaching them regulation skills. As adults, we're taught to have like meditation moments, or like even my watch reminds me to have deep breaths every so often. Those are all nervous system tools to keep ourselves regulated and calm. So we do it instinctively. The acoustic space, or that that soft space you create in a home, is a visual reminder to them of, hey, this is where you can reset. It's not rewarding. It's not enticing, other than if you need it and as often as you need it and when you need it, use it. And that sound dampening, I would tell you what, that just creates a whole different experience for them.
So if you think about a child's room, that a parent can like help the vibration in that room, what are some other architectural or design features that they can do other than the cove that we talked about?
Meaning to get that same audio effect?
Yeah, just different audio. I mean, I think about carpet. Okay, if you can put carpet in the room or rugs.
Yeah,
what are some other designs?
Well, something as simple as sound diffusers. So your architect or your design elements in the house, your decorations, whether it's your wall hangings or pictures, if you just look up sound diffusing, panels, there's a lot of just design elements. They almost look like modern art, but they're designed to absorb and diffuse sound, so it reduces echo and controls some of the audio vibrations. And so just being conscious of sound, echo points, things like rugs, different textures where they can, have that comfort space, all those things help to just give them that sense of regulation and that environmental control.
Now, would you want to spread that out throughout the entire home? Like, how would you do that in a kitchen? Because most kitchens, they have wood floor, tile floors. It's a little bit more, guess hard surfaces.
Yeah.
So how would you?
Man, this is turning into architecture episode. So,
well, but it's interesting. I think our families will really enjoy this.
So I'm going to put my attorney hat on for a second and give you the answer I know you hate. It depends.
Okay.
Right.
I thought you weren't an attorney anymore.
I'm a recovering attorney. It depends on your intention with the space. So my son, he struggles with general or abstract math. So the kitchen is a learning environment. Okay, so for me, a learning environment is not going to be, I want these calm acoustic things. I want him focused and engaged. So my lighting in the kitchen is a little more than other areas. It's still dimmable, but I have more of that focus control. So I want them engaged and stimulated in my kitchen. I don't want them relaxed. So it really just depends on what the room is and what your intention with that space is. If you've got a homework area, I don't want the nook as part of the homework area. I want it to be a resource, so if they're getting that burnout and frustration, it's accessible, but I would design my homework space different than I would my regulation space.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, is
that a fair answer?
Yeah, it is. That's your attorney, it depends type of situation.
Yeah, and it's because there's no one size fits all. I wish there were. If there was this is how you approach autism, and we have the answer, we would solve all the world's problems. But it's called a spectrum for a reason, and one child's need is another child's kryptonite. And so really our goal, I think, on the podcast is just to expose parents to ideas, to options, right? And if nothing else, you're given, why not? Let's try this and see if it has an impact. As much as we can empower parents with the choices out there, they know their children. And experimenting with these tools, the good news is it's not expensive, it's easy to do. And hopefully you're able within that to find the things that work best for your child.
Right. What about audio, like with like a surround sound room or a TV or
don't tempt me. Not that that's a lot more expensive.
Well, but because we've seen kids where that audio, that vibration of the audio with the television, whatever, does sometimes trigger, or it creates some discomfort. How would you regulate that? Like, how would you work with? Okay, so if my kid's on the spectrum, I'm thinking let me think about the lighting of my house. Okay, to kind of help create a more calming or a more inviting environment. Okay, now I'm thinking about the acoustics of my house. Especially there's some houses with very thin walls, or like you can hear other people if you have combined walls. So how do I work with that?
I mean, I can tell you some theories, but again, every child's going to be different. So, for example, my boy has a different taste in music than I do. He's always loved like hip hop and rap, and that's not my jam. It's funny for him it's focusing, right? He could be looking at a million different things, and if I put on this, he likes this Lamborghini jam, and it's like a blend of disco, hip hop, and rap. It's the weirdest thing ever. But he starts moving, he starts going to the beat, he gets focused. It lifts his spirits. He gets like his whole tone and facial expression changes. If he went into a room with just yoga music, he just would want to leave because that's not him. But other kids...
But see, other people think that's a great point, because other people are like, okay, we need to have, like we talked about having different audio in Polaris Academy at different times. Like we've kind of experimented with that.
Yeah, some kids like the spa music, some kids like the Disney music. And I would say, listen, this is an invitation for parents to discover, find out what they like, find out how they react. Does it trigger them? Some kids' music, they don't enjoy, right? They want to put on noise-canceling headphones.
Right.
Others need their headphones because they want to listen to the music that nobody else does. Others can't stand the feel of a headphone on their head. So like even the debate of should I use noise canceling headphones or personal headphones or even headphones at all? Well, that's a factor of, can they stand the sensation? Do they need the noise canceled? Do they want more of the noise? Like it really is a spectrum, and knowing where your child falls in all those respects, lighting, sound, becomes this opportunity to explore. It's like a treasure map. You're discovering all these little nuances, and that's...
I love how you call that as a treasure map. I like that.
It is. It's, Brad, if I could go back, gosh, it's been 8-9 years now since we started this autism journey. If I could go back and tell myself one thing that would have really helped, it would have been understanding that autism is not a behavior disorder. It is a neurological condition. It's not even a disorder. And what I mean by that is autism is not that our children are misbehaving and they need to be taught how to behave appropriately. And that's how new parents tend to enter it. We want our kids to act normal. And so we, like I did, I tried to put him around quote unquote normal kids so that he would learn how to be more normal, as if it was just a behavior thing, right?
Well, and I can see that you're getting emotional as you're explaining this, Nathan. And I feel like that is a trigger that most of our parents feel too.
Yeah. And it's even misleading in like the name of our supports, ABA, which is the most common therapy for autism. It's applied behavior analytics.
Or we use it, they are diagnosed with autism. There's a word diagnosis.
Exactly. And so we tend to approach it as a disorder or a handicap or whatever you want to call it. And so the intent is we go into it trying to fix these behaviors or teach new behaviors. And if you take 2 steps back and go, no, it's a neurological condition, what does that mean? Because it might not be a familiar word for everybody. Your brain processes information differently on a biological level. The actual hardwiring, it takes input in differently. So think of your brain. If you look at a Google picture, just the brain itself, there's sections of the brain. You've got right brain and left brain and frontal cortex and the limbic brain in the back, and they all do different things, okay? So there's a part of your brain, Brad, that runs your entire body without you thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It pumps your heart. It makes your lungs function. It receives input from your nervous system and all your sensory processing. And you don't have to consciously think about that, right? And so it's doing like a billion processes a second.
Every day.
But I'm saying your brain runs every minute aspect of your body. And when you look at the body as a whole, like it is an amazing organism. And so that background software is running whether you think about it or not. Now imagine, Brad, when I give you a math problem, typically, in a typical brain, you're going to process that through your logical brain, which I forget if it's your left or your right side. I'm not a brain specialist, but the theory I understand, right? So you're going to process through that logical side. You're going to compute, come up with an analysis, run your checks, and understand what your answer is. Imagine if you saw a math problem, and instead of the neural pathway going to your logic brain, the neural pathway for you goes through that sub-processing part of your brain that runs all your body systems, that does things without you even being conscious of it. Now you're a savant because your brain is solving the math problem without you even thinking about it. Now this is the kid that can give you the answer to a 6-digit multiplication problem times another 6-digit number, and they just spit it out. Or you ask them, what day was February 2nd, 1942? And like Tuesday. And they say it in like a microsecond. Their brain didn't route it through the logic brain that needs to be consciously aware. It routed it through another process. It's a physical pathway that is different than yours. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I've seen that a lot when we've been asking some of our kids, like, we go to math or numbers, like that's just kind of like, we have a worker that he's autistic. And I remember, like, I asked him, I was like, oh man, I forgot what our bank account number was. And like, he just knew it from the top of his head.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And it kind of makes me worried.
Yeah, but for him, that's normal. Okay? And it's why it can be so confusing that like a child that loves lights, right? And it just is bombarded by lights and is like fed by this light overload is the same diagnosis as the child that can't stand lights. So you go, well, that's totally different. They should be diagnosed differently. No, they have the same condition. Neurologically, their pathway for light sensory mechanisms is different. One child that loves lights, okay, you've got a reward center in your brain, right, that tells you this is good, I want more, produces dopamine, and it gives you that hit, right, the reward center. Mm-hmm. Imagine if light, which for us goes just through our basic nervous system and we're processing it. But imagine if light for you was like chocolate and it went through the reward center of your brain and you got a dopamine hit every time you experience flashing lights.
Well, yeah, you would just go nuts.
Okay, let me go the other way. Now your brain is, no, light for me doesn't go through sensory processing and it doesn't even go to the dopamine side. It goes to my limbic brain in the back, the one that's the fight or flight. Like I see a bear.
Yes.
Imagine your neural pathway for light goes through that part of the brain first.
Yeah, you'd be freaking out all the time.
Okay, and so we, as a society, we make this attempt to understand autism and go, oh, we need an autism-friendly day. Let's turn off all the lights and shut off all the sound. Now, I applaud.
That will fix everything.
I applaud the effort and the attempted awareness, but really, you're just compensating for this micro subspecies of the autistic population. And again, we're trying to go, oh, because otherwise it affects behavior. So going way back to my first comment, it's not a behavior problem. It's not a behavior condition. It is a neurological condition. And that's what invites the opportunity for the treasure map, because no two autistic brains are alike.
Well, and again, now let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. So you're talking about different fluorescent, Kelvin.
Different light bands.
Light bands. And I go back to dimmers.
Right.
Saying, okay, well, let's lower the light. So that's kind of like a misunderstanding. It's like, well, yeah, that helps too. But let's first talk about, the what'd you call it? The Kelvin.
The warmth and the cool. Yeah.
See, and that's really slick.
Yeah. And so it shifted our brains, my wife and I, from just how do we fix our kids' behavior to understanding, all right, how does your brain work? How do you process? What are the reward centers? What are the triggers? What goes through your limbic brain? What goes through the front cortex? What skills are you proficient at? Because if you think about it, everybody on earth has skills and talents. But if you wire the brain differently, you're discovering non-traditional talents, right? And that's why if you look back through history, there's theories that Einstein was on the spectrum, that Beethoven was on the spectrum, that a lot of these people that did these great things.
Like Socrates and all those guys.
Yeah, that they were on the spectrum. And
there was even I've been reading a book about Alexander the Great. And even there's even arguments that he was probably even on the spectrum because he was just so intense.
Yeah.
Like he had a mindset that if he wasn't absolutely perfect, he couldn't stand it. Like he had to be great at all things.
Yeah. And so you look
But I'm not saying that's all, but just that could be a reason.
But it invites the opportunity, right? There's something about these individuals. And I think the reason why we're inspired, like when we hear motivational speakers, like, how did you do that? I think we watched this thing on Netflix recently about Alex Honnold. He's a free solo climber. So that means he climbs without ropes and without nets. And he just climbed this building in Taiwan with no supports. And I'm watching this guy out on these slick metal features 1,000 feet in the air going, what on earth are you, I'm anxious just watching it. And I already know he makes it, right? But for him, that's the greatest thing in the world. His brain works differently than mine. So, autism, if I had started with my child's brain is just different, and that's not a good or bad thing. It just is a thing to be aware of. And now my job as a parent gets to be to discover, how does your brain work? What makes you tick? How are you wired? And then how do I work within that to give you the tools you need to be successful in this world of mine, instead of me dictating to you how I want you to quote unquote behave? It would have changed my whole approach to it.
Well, and I'm so reassuring to all of our parents and our folks that are listening to our podcast that I love how you're talking about it's a discovery, that here it's more of like a treasure map.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be something that's scary. Like, hey, I'm going to figure out how my child's brain thinks and how it works by creating these, lights throughout the different parts of the house that can best, suit my child's needs based upon the environment that we want them to be in. And then also with the vibrations and sounds and, different textures that we would have throughout the house. So it's really, I love how you're bringing it out. That's like, hey guys, don't be afraid, embrace it. Let's play with it. Let's discover some things work, some things don't, and that's cool. That's fine. And we're just going to figure this out together.
Exactly.
I love that. It gives us a lot of hope, a lot of confidence. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for all your insights and design features and things that you've learned as a parent, and also building Polaris Academy. that we've kind of fell into. So thank you, everybody, for making us part of your day. Please don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation that inspires connection. I also want to thank our wonderful producer, Jesse Palmer, and our wonderful marketing director, Dallin Davis. Until next time, let's do some good.